Hello and welcome to JetCast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Sebastian, and today we'll be discussing which seat configurations are the best.
But first, let's explore the latest aviation news from Simple Flying.
So, firstly, two Boeing 787s diverted to Tokyo Haneda on the same day due to engine problems. One was the ANA 7879, and the other was the United 78710. So, it's obviously a model wide problem. We had engine issues shortly after departure. There was mechanical reasons which they don't state,
Yep.
and it arrived shortly after takeoff. And it was curious that it was in the same two aircraft types on the same day. So could it be another Boeing failure? Sean, what do you know about this?
Well, I think it's very interesting to know that it's two 787s. I'm looking at it now. So, yeah, okay, it's really interesting to see that it's two 787s. And yes, it's most likely a 787 issue because obviously it was two separate airlines, ANA and United.
Yeah,
And that's actually really interesting because they have completely different maintenance and that they've got a completely different type of usage for that 787. For example, ANA often uses their 787s for short haul, regional flights, as well as long haul flights, whereas United uses them for completely long haul flights. So I find that really interesting that they were both having engine issues. So yes, it's most likely a problem on the 787's part.
we also have breaking news that Spirit received a court approval to continue operations amid bankruptcy. They confirmed that it will be able to continue its operation with scheduled commercial flights as normal, despite filing the Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection for the second time in a year last week. The carrier has received court approval that will allow it to support the continuation of its business. So, Sean, Spirit has had a lot of problems recently. So, what do you think will come out of this bankruptcy?
Well, I mean, Spirit has gone into bankruptcy multiple times over the last few years, and they have come out of it multiple times, which is good. We like Spirit Airlines, as bad as they are, but it really shows how their business model isn't really working anymore, because obviously bankruptcy, you don't really have enough money to continue proper operations. And yes, although the court has approved them to continue operations, which is always a good thing because otherwise it's just going to get worse. It really shows that the American market is definitely shifting.
Yeah, yeah.
um, as we've seen, more airlines are going premium or more premium. For example, Frontier, they are introducing big front seats. Um, so that's really shows how the landscape of aviation is changing in the United States. So I find that really interesting.
A key part of this move will now see the carrier rework its network to focus on more key markets. This will see Spirit Airlines increase its frequencies and networks from its focus cities while reducing its presence elsewhere. Correspondingly, fleet size will be optimized to match demand and generate operational savings. They currently operate a total of 214 aircraft, 62 A320s, 91 A320neos, 29 A321s, and 32 A321neos, a full Airbus fleet.
Interesting. That's really interesting the way that they are going to help combat this bankruptcy. So yeah, that's very respectable of them. Anyway, I've got some fairly older news right now. It is the new Alaska Airlines global livery. It's that um, Alaska Airlines livery that is going to be going on their 787s. So obviously, this looks very different to the current livery. It doesn't have that classic man on the tail, and it's more of a Northern Lights type thing. Um, And I mean, the online backlash has been quite severe. People are saying that it looks AI generated and it's losing a lot of that proper Alaskan character.
Yeah.
But personally, I think it looks really nice. And as it is a global livery and they are not getting rid of their classical man, I think it's completely fine that they're choosing to use this livery on their new long haul routes, which, by the way, are going to
However,
London and a few other
However,
destinations.
Alaska's other airline, which they own, Hawaiian, has annoyed some of the Hawaiian population, as the Hawaiian 787s are also going to be painted in a new Alaska livery. This isn't going to go down well for Hawaiians. So, do you think they'll stick with their change of livery for Hawaiian?
Well, I think it's just some of the Hawaiian 787s that Hawaiian has on order, which is fine. But I can understand why some Hawaiian nationals, or well, American nationals who live in Hawaii, I can understand why they're quite upset because they were going to Hawaiian, and
Yeah.
in a way, Alaska has snatched away these planes, although they are part of the same company because they merged not that long ago.
There's also
What do you
breaking news that WestJet has got a huge order from Boeing. They've got a large order for up to 96 Boeing 737 MAX and 787 aircraft. The new order brings the airline's total order book to 123 and 40 options, which should fulfill the airline's fleet's needs for almost a decade.
Wow.
On order, they have 60 737 MAX 10s with 25 options and 7 787-9s with 4 options, bringing them to a total possible of 96 aircraft. So, Sean,
Wow.
what do you think
That's
about this?
actually
How would it boost WestJet's productivity?
well, I think that's just incredible that they have ordered more aircraft. And I know that you don't like the 737 Max that
Yeah,
much, but seriously, I think it is a crucial part of WestJet's growth. And we always love seeing airlines grow, and though it might not be an aircraft that we necessarily really like, for example, the A320, it is still good to see WestJet order new aircraft, um, which is good, and it kind of makes sense for them since they already have plenty of 737 Maxes and 737s. That's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. Okay. So another story that I find incredibly interesting and in a way kind of funny is the reduction of seatback screens on American airlines. So I know it has been a clear uh, thing coming over the past few years, but American Airlines has been removing loads of their personal in-flight screens from the backs of their mainly regional fleet. So for this, they've kind of replaced it with a phone holder and online entertainment available. So other airlines are going to be following this trend, most likely, like Delta or United. So Sebastian, what do you think about this?
so it's hardly surprising that they've decided to do this. Number one, it'll save them a lot of money not using the electricity to run these IFE systems. And by using people's own phones, well, couldn't they in some way get a better source of entertainment?
And in a way, the in-flight screens are actually heavier, so they are going to be using more fuel than if the in-flight screens weren't there, because every seat has an in-flight
Yeah.
screen, and with that, it really adds up like to kilos of weight, and that's never good for an aircraft. So I think, yeah, putting the IFE on phones, and having like a link to use to get the in-flight entertainment onto your phones and to use it yourself. They are already using something that people would bring on their flights anyway. So
Yeah.
they are saving costs for not having to install all of these in-flight screens. They are saving weight, which in turn is also saving cost. And they are just giving people the flexibility to use their phones where they like and what they want to use them for.
Talking of American Airlines, they've also hit their millennium, now currently owning 1,000 aircraft. So American Airlines has reached a major fleet milestone. The carrier recently welcomed its 1,000th mainline aircraft, a Boeing 7879 Dreamliner, which landed at Dallas-Fort Worth Hub on August the 29th. The aircraft is part of the airline's wider fleet renewal program, which includes dozens of new long-haul jets on order. It features the newly launched flagship suite, which the airline is currently fitting across all its new 787s. The One World Alliance member only operates these premium Dreamliners on selected flights to London Heathrow and on some domestic services to Los Angeles. With the arrival of the 1000th jet, it plans to expand its premium offering to more international destinations in the months ahead. So, Sean, hitting 1,000 aircraft is a huge achievement for American, but having a lot of aircraft produces a lot of costs and maintenance problems. So, do you think they'll cope with this many aircraft?
Well, over the years, American has greatly expanded their fleet, and they are known as the world's biggest airline with most aircraft. So it was inevitable that American Airlines was going to reach 1,000 planes, which is, by the way, an incredible milestone that I really applaud them for doing and getting to. Um, but I know that because they have had a massive number of aircraft for so long, I know that they are going to managing these aircraft, and they are a very efficient airline and a very cost-effective airline, as we have just seen with them getting rid of those inflate screens in their short-haul planes. Um, but I know that they will be handling this cost and use of aircraft very well. And as well as this, their premium aircraft, it's always good to see more premium aircraft because we like a premium aircraft. And it's always good to see more premium aircraft joining airlines
Yeah.
fleet because that gets them away from, the horrible seats. Okay, so it is now time for the main part of the episode, my personal favorite. And what is our topic today, Sebastian?
So something that has been on our minds recently, and for no reason at all, is seat configurations. We wanted to discuss our favourite, most practical, and all-round best seat configurations out there. And yes, while we mainly fly economy, we also want to discuss the premium classes.
Yes, I know I have many opinions.
Okay, I'll start. So let's start with narrow bodies. We have one abreast, which doesn't really appear in any commercial aviation. We're going to slowly work through all the different seat configurations till we hit 10 abreast. So let's start with 2 abreast. 2 abreast is normally in a typical 1-1 configuration. We have the Cessna Caravan family, the Otter, also known as the DHC-3, the Beechcraft 1900, and the Fairchild Metroliner. So Sean, how often do you see these aircraft in fleets?
Well, I know that in a mainline fleet for like a large airline, for example, American Airlines, I know that these aircraft are quite rare, but in shorter, less high capacity markets, for example, to the Shetland Islands, I know that
Yeah.
a lot of these aircraft are actually quite popular, seeing as they are small and they are efficient and they can run from small airports.
It's probably one of the most efficient seat configurations for small airports, 1-1 being very narrow in size, and it's good for small aircraft, obviously, we don't have much space. Plus, if you're talking about it from a passenger perspective, you will have lots of space, you don't necessarily have to be next to someone, and you always get a window seat, which is often loved by passengers.
Yes. Okay, our next one is 3 abreast, often configured in a 2-1 configuration. The only one that we found, though there might be more, was the Twin Otter, otherwise known as the DHC-6. So, what do you think about that?
It's like again with the 2 abreast, it's used for small airports, doesn't take up too much room. And from a passenger perspective, it is good. If you're traveling in twos, you've got the space. If you're traveling by yourself, you've got the space. So it's good for passengers and for airlines for their efficiency.
Yes, very much so. I quite like the 2-2-1 because, if you're traveling alone, it's good. If you're traveling with someone else, also good. And our next one is the 4 abreast 2-2. And who usually operates with that?
We have BA City Flyer in their E190s. We have lots of ATR operators such as Logan Air, and C919s. They're very popular in China. And the DHC-8 is common in Canada, but also by Luxair in Europe.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, it's a fairly all right seat configuration. I find it fine. The CRJs, they are a little cramped. And our next one is 5 abreast, often configured in a 3-2 configuration. These aircraft include the A220, some C919s, the 717, as well as the MD-80, although there might be more.
It's a
This
good
one's,
family configuration, isn't it?
yeah,
Because families often consist of 3 people or 4 people. Family of 4, you get 2 twos. Family of 3, you get a 3. But again, it's not good for people traveling by themselves.
yeah, totally. I completely agree with you, and it's a perfectly fine seat configuration. I find that the A320 The A220 is a fine aircraft. I quite like it. It's very comfortable, and the 3-2 is convenient in both if you're traveling with one person, or if you're traveling with two people, or if you're traveling alone because you can sit with just one other person instead of two. The next seat configuration is
6 abreast, 3-3. This is very common in the short haul market, but now in long haul with the new A321 XLR, we have 737s, 757s, 707s, and 727s from Boeing, and the A320 family from Airbus. That's the A320neo, the A321neo, the very rare A319neo, and then the rest of the A320 family.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
very common in Europe, especially, and in the Americas for short hops between cities and smaller places. We have low cost carriers like Ryanair, EasyJet, or in the US, Spirit, Allegiant, etc., using this configuration. It's
Yeah.
useful for airlines, they can get lots of people in, but is it good from a passenger perspective, Sean?
Well, the 3-3 configuration is probably the most common in regional markets because the it's just the most common. The A320 has it, the 737 has it, and for economy, that's a perfectly fine seat configuration. Yes, it has 2 middle seats per row, but that's fine. It's a good configuration in my opinion. So yeah, that's completely fine. As you can tell, this is a 3-3 configuration on the A320. Which is a fine configuration. I quite like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then shall we move on to our wide bodies,
Yes.
most popular in long haul, but can also be used in short haul sometimes. So let's start with 7 abreast, not very common in the 232 configuration. The only aircraft we've found with it is the Boeing 767, most common in North America.
Yeah. It's a fine configuration. As I
It's
said, the
good for
three.
families yet again. You
Yeah,
can get
the three is
twos
fine.
for families of 4, twos for families of 2, or a 3 for a family of 3. There's only one middle seat per row, which middle seats are often the most hated seats, and this is good for a passenger perspective.
Yeah, it's a fine configuration. Our next configuration, which is used on the A330, A340, A380 upper deck, the 787 on Japan Airlines, the A310, and the A300 is 8 abreast, otherwise known as a 2-4-2 configuration.
It's very common among Airbus,
Yeah.
and it's an odd choice that JAL made for 787. For from their perspective, they can't get as many passengers in. But I suppose they're looking at the passengers' perspective, getting 242, which is often a more comfortable option, wider seats, but they're not so good for families of 3.
Yeah, it's a completely fine configuration. I quite like it on the A330. It's a perfectly good configuration for if you want to be on your own or if you just dislike middle seats in general. So I don't mind it. It's not my favorite, but it's fine.
Next, we have 9 abreast, 333. possibly one of the most common in the skies currently. It's on the 787, the A350, sometimes on the more packed A330s, and sometimes the older 777s. It's not great when you're travelling in an even number, as you will have to split up. However, it is good for airline efficiency. So, Sean, what do you think of this configuration?
So, my favorite is actually the 333 configuration. I really like it. It's airy. It's perfectly good for a family of three, or if you're sitting on your own, because you know it's got a middle seat, it's got a window seat, it's got an aisle seat. Yes, the middle seat might not be great, but if you're traveling with another family member, it's fine. I quite like it. And on the 777s, it means it's a wider cabin. Well, it's a wider seat in general than a 10 abreast. We'll get to that later. And on the A330, yes, it might be a little packed, but it's good for the business model of Cebu Pacific, who have that on their 330s. Our next seat configuration is 10 abreast, or 343. This exists on the A380 lower deck, the 777, the 747, and as an option for the A350, though no airline has taken that yet.
So it's a good seat configuration for families again, fours and threes, but not necessarily if you're travelling on your own. It featured on the 777 later in its existence for airlines to create more efficiency among passengers by getting more into the cabin. It's an option on the A350, yet again, to get more passengers in for airlines, but it hasn't been taken yet as the seat width is reduced to 17 inches, I recall.
Yeah, it was advertised to be on the Iberia A350s, but it just never happened. Anyway, our next segment of this deep dive into seat configurations is premium economy, which on the narrow bodies rarely exists. It exists on the ETA A320, and it really has four abreast. That's really it. 2-2. The A320 and the 757 have it. And now on wide bodies, it is most commonly used as a 7 abreast or an 8 abreast. So 7 abreast would be 232, which exists on the A330s, 767s, and 787s, if obviously premium.
That is a good seat configuration. However, if you're sat in the middle of that row, it's not great for getting out, especially and also in the twos. If you're trying to sleep on the outside, it's not great for someone having to climb over you.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a fine configuration. I don't mind it. I think it's perfectly fine for a premium economy seat.
We also have the same problem in 8 abreast 242. This features on 787s, 777s, A380s, A350s, A340s, and A330s. Very common among Airbus.
Yeah, it's completely premium economy. Yes, it's a great seat. It's got brilliant recline. It's perfectly wide. It's a very comfortable seat, especially compared to economy in most airlines. But in the configurations, it isn't that great. Seeing as you might be sitting in a middle seat or a second middle seat. Two middle seats, and if you're sitting in the aisle, people will still have to climb over you to get out. So even though it's premium economy, it's great. I love premium economy, but it's fine.
And shall we move on to business class and American first?
Yeah, because for some reason American Airlines, well, not just American Airlines, American Airlines, literally American Airlines brand their business classes, regional, domestic, as first class for some reason. It's a very strange choice. So for narrow bodies, we have the Eurobiz configuration, which I really dislike. I've flown it a few times. It's not the best. For a 5 abreast cabin, that would be 2, 3. Some but not all airlines block out the middle seats. So, it's fine. That it really exists only on the A220s. And then we have also 6 abreast, which is
That is featured on the 737 and A320 families, but some, but not all airlines block out the middle seat, again, like the A220.
yeah, so strange.
That
SAS.
happens on British Airways a lot, doesn't it?
No, well, it depends. If it's an overbooked flight sometimes, but mostly no. Um, SAS don't for some reason block out the middle seat, which kind of completely makes the entire premium side of actually getting that seat like disappear. What's the point? Anyway, another narrow body business class is a recliner.
Recliners are very popular in the long haul market, but can also feature in the short haul market, as we can see here. I know Etihad have it on their A320s, and so let's make a start. We have 2 abreast in a 1-1 configuration, and then we have 3 abreast, which is common in the E family, some Dash 8s, and the CRJ family in a 2-1 configuration. What do you think of this configuration, Sean?
It's fine. uh, as I said before, it's a fine configuration. I don't really mind it. For a recliner, that's perfectly fine. I mean, in premium economy, I did say that 2-1 isn't the greatest, but it's fine.
Then we have 4 abreast 2-2. This appears in some C919s, China's new aircraft, some Dash 8s, 717 or the MD-80, the A320 family, 737s, 757s, and 707s. This is a good seat configuration if you're traveling with someone, but again, with the recliner, it's not easy for the person on the inside to get out.
Yeah, it's a completely fine configuration. I don't mind it. To be honest, a 2-2 is definitely better than a 2-3, which we will come to because, no middle seat. But yeah, it's fine.
And next we have 5 abreast. This is on the old British Airways 737s and on the 727s. 727 is not a very common sight nowadays, with just 14 left operational worldwide, most of which are not for passenger use.
Which is sad to see, just
Yeah.
in general. Our lie flat / angle flat seats on the narrow bodies, there's really only one configuration, which is 2 abreast, 1-1, which mainly exist on the A321 or 757. Obviously, the A321 is mainly, JetBlue, uh, Iberia.
Etihad have it on some now.
Yeah, which
Um,
is pretty good. I mean, I would take a lie flat seat any day over a recliner. It's perfectly fine. And
Good
the
configuration.
757 Delta has it. United I think has it. So yeah, that's fine. I don't have really a comment.
Should we continue on to wide bodies now? Start with
Yes.
recliners. This is 7 abreast 232. This appears on the Norse and Scoot 787s, both low cost airlines. This is good for low cost airlines as it maximizes passenger capacity, but does it really seem like a proper business class?
Well, it depends how you look at it. If you count business class as mainly a seat, then it's not really business class, it's more of a premium economy. And these airlines do brand it as kind of a premium product. But if you take business class as an experience, then in a way, yes, it is a business class because most airlines, you do get lounge access, you do get premium perks, you do get priority boarding, you get a few bags, it's a good. It depends on what you take business class as, to be honest.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to lie flat or angle flat seats on the wide bodies, which is the most common seats used on wide bodies for business class seats. So we have 3 abreast, which is often configured in 1-1-1, which is not very common at all. It exists on the Virgin 330s for their horrible herringbone seats. They face inwards for some really strange, confusing reason, and that's on their A330. No idea why they even decided to make that, but it's fine.
Now let's look at 4 abreast, commonly in a 1-2-1 configuration or 2-2. It's seen in the 747 front/upper, And in the 777, A380, A350, A340, A330, 787, and 767, a very common choice among airlines.
Yes, an incredibly common choice for the lie flat seat. It comes from everything from a forward facing seat to a backwards facing seat to the reverse herringbone to the horrible herringbone, which, it's a good configuration. I perfectly like it. It's pretty good, Um, so, yeah, I have no comment.
The next seating configuration we want to look at is 5 abreast. This is seen in 221 or 212 on the 747 front, A330, 767, or A340. It's obviously a way, yet again, for airlines to get more people on board, which is, at the end of the day, their aim.
Yeah, 5 abreast is a very strange configuration. It's very rarely found like on a normal plane. So,
Yeah.
for example, the A330 on Aer Lingus has the strangest configuration, where they have a different, depending on row for some reason, they have it so that there's a throne seat, and then there are two in the middle, and then for some reason there are two on the other side, and then there's a single one, and then two in the middle, and then for some reason a throne seat, which is really strange, and I'm confused. It's very confusing.
We next have 6 abreast for lie flat and angle flat. This is seen in a 222 configuration. It's seen on the Boeing 767, the Airbus A330, the Boeing 777. It's obviously, in some way, a more modern choice with the A350 and A330, but also not as it's seen on the A300 and A310. In some way, it's a traditional choice for airlines to choose. It maximizes space of the aircraft, but is it roomy enough for passengers, Sean?
Well, in my opinion, it's not enough for passengers. Passengers, if they're paying like extortionate prices, like they often are, in my opinion, they should have a seat to themselves and do not have to share. So yeah, it's an all right configuration. 222. At least it's not 232. We'll get to that later, and my opinions on that later. But yeah, it's a fine configuration. It's not the worst. And then
And
the
we
next
finally
one,
have 7 abreast, which is 232 on the MD-11 or 777. Very strange configuration to have.
yeah, this exists, or at least used to exist on a lot of planes back in the day on the old 777s mainly. That is the Turkish Airlines 777, which is that really old seat, which and the really outdated and frankly completely out of place seat on Emirates' old 777s, which do exist on some of them still today. Thankfully, they're taking them out. I hate this seat configuration. I hate it. It is not worth the money. If you have a
Ooh.
plane that is flying with a 2-3-2 configuration, it is a horrible seat configuration, and you might as well be paying economy prices.
The new replacements for these, such as Emirates, are very nice. They're in a sort of first class style, just missing the door. The new sort of business classes now contain doors, which makes you much more private, and they actually seem to be turning into first class seats. We have A&A the room, um, and we have lots of other types of business classes which act like their own room.
Yeah, and then our last honorable mention is whatever Club World is. It is this really strange configuration that British Airways put into a lot of their planes back in the day. Still, many of their planes have it, a few old 787s and a few A380s. And for some reason, it had this staggered, yin yang configuration, one facing forward, one facing backwards. And you're basically looking at your neighbor. In my opinion, this configuration is worse than an economy seat. Yes, you might be getting a lie flat seat, but you have to stare at someone at their face. Thank God they're um, changing it and retrofitting it to the beautiful club suites, which is obviously a reverse herringbone seat, which is brilliant.
And that seat configuration is common in economy, which is ironic. It's an ironic choice for business class.
So strange.
Now we're going to go on to first class. Firstly, looking at wide bodies. Well, actually, only wide bodies, because first class doesn't often appear in narrow bodies. Firstly, we have two abreast, which is very spacious. This appears on the A380 and 777s. What do you think of this configuration, Sean?
Well, first class is a very premium service, and I love it. You know, everyone loves a good first class,
Yeah,
although most of us don't get to fly it. Um, it mainly exists on the A380s and 777s, and it is incredibly premium. For example, on the A380, Etihad has it with their massive first class
yeah,
big
the
suites.
residents.
Yeah, and the residence, yeah. 3 rooms with a bathroom, which is incredible, and I love it. And then our next seat configuration for first class, mainly on the wide bodies, is 3 abreast, which is 1, 1, 1. This exists on the 777, not really on the 747 anymore, but very occasionally. On the A380 and the A350. Lufthansa has this, the Allegris first class. And I think British Airways has this, or at least they did at some point. I need to fact check that later. But yeah, it's a good, comfortable first class seat,
A
but
lot of
there's no
space,
way
you're not
it can
crammed
properly
in.
compete. Yeah, there's no way it can properly compete with, the likes of 1-1. I know that the Game Changer suite on the 777s, Emirates 777s, the ones go from floor to ceiling, are
Oh, yeah.
incredible, and I love them. But it's never going to live up to the beautiful Singapore Airlines, like the massive rooms,
Oh, yeah.
or the residence, obviously.
And to
And then
end this seat configuration topic, let's look at four abreast. This is 121, often seen on the Boeing 777, the Airbus A380, and the Boeing 747, but probably not so much as the 747 is slowly dying.
very sad, very sad. This really mainly properly really exists on like lesser premium first classes. So that would be Thai Airways, Qatar Airways, some British Airways seats. It's a fine first class. It's nothing compared to the 1-1 or the 1-1-1. But it's fine. It's a first class experience. You're paying for first class. You should be getting a first class suite. You might as well be paying for a business class for a breast product. So, sadly, this episode of JetCast has come to an end. Thank you guys so much for listening to our new passion project, which has already had the first episode out. This really is something that we will appreciate you for listening to, uh, and we will appreciate any support, which you can type down in the comments below. We didn't have any people type down their last episode, so please type something down in the comments.
And using those comments below, feel free to ask us any questions, which we'll answer at the end next time.
Yeah, because we'd love to add a Q&A section of our podcast because, I love answering questions.
And if you haven't already watched the first episode, make sure to do so. But from now until then, we wish you a good day.
Goodbye, and we'll see you next time.